ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Jerusalem's Gate. We got a sermon today, and before you switch the channel or you're looking for the news, I know the news, first I'll say this, I know the news is more viewed, and people are very interested in watching the news in these last days, but please, for the love of God, just hold on and to the short message. It's only going to be just a short, very short message, and I hope you stick out, because I think the Lord has put something on my mind to tell people. So let's roll up our sleeves and get busy. We got some ground to cover, and I'm going to do it in a very short period of time. So if I go fast, I apologize. If you need to go back and review it on the video, please do. So let's get started. Like I said, we got a lot of ground to cover. Luke chapter 21 is probably... I've never heard people really describe it in a way that, covering the news for so many years and studying the Word and praying and I know that the Lord is revealing things to me as said. So let's go into it and dissect it. In the first part of chapter 21, it talks about the end days, but it starts off with nothing about the end days. The Lord starts off by talking about him and his disciples preaching, and they have the offering plate there, and a rich came by and offered a lot of money. But here comes this poor widow, and all she had to all of her life, I mean, I'm talking about food money, rent money, everything, was 2 mites, 2 little coins. And she put in everything she had, the 2 coins. And Jesus stopped everything right then, and he told his disciples, he says, see this little widow? She has cast in more than all those. And a lot of people cast in a lot of money. And I think what the Lord is saying as he introduces chapter 21 to us is that, hey, trust me like the little widow trusted me with everything you have. Trust me. Trust me what I'm fixing to say, because it's the truth. And I think that's why, at least that's what I believe in prayer, and why the Lord opens this chapter up about prophecy with a twist, and something that has nothing to do with prophecy. And he's saying, trust me what I'm fixing to say. Okay, then it goes on. They're in the temple area, and the temple was a beautiful building in the old city, and it was adorned with all kind of stones, and had all kind of gifts and everything, and the disciples were amazed at all the buildings, and Jesus seen that the disciples were amazed at the buildings in the temple area, and he said, you see all the, in chapter 6, verse 6 rather, as for all these things which you behold, the days will come in which there shall not be left one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. Now, what he was talking about, and when I was in the old city, where in the temple area, you can actually see where the Romans came and knocked down the stones of the temple, and the stones fell and broke the ground, the stone ground, and crushed it. That's still there today. You can go there and see that. I seen it and witnessed it, and I immediately thought of this right here when I was there. And then they said, and they asked him, saying, Master, but when shall these things be, and what will the sign be when these things shall come to pass? And they didn't know what they were talking about. They were not only talking about the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, but Christ was speaking, his Spirit was speaking through them, and God was speaking through them to talk about today's days, the end days, the end of the age, as we call it. And let's go on to verse 8. And I'm going fast, and I do apologize, but I want to make sure I cover this in just a few minutes. And he said, take heed that ye be not deceived. For many shall come in my name, and saying, I am Christ, and the time draweth near. Go ye not after them. And today you have that. You have people that profess that they're Christ, or people that has such money, so rich by the ministry financially, that they receive a God complex. And I'm not calling out any names, because I'm not going to do that, because I don't know who they are. I'm just telling you what the Lord has put in my mind, that in the latter days you'll see that. I'm not saying it's wrong to be rich as a preacher either. I'm not saying that. Many characters in the Bible that was God's chosen people that were rich. So it's how you handle the money. Verse 9, but when you shall hear of wars and commotions, be not terrified, for these things must first come to pass, but the end is not by and by. Now, a lot of people were confused by that last sentence right here. It says, but the end is not by and by. And some people said, well, if he's talking about the end of the age, why does it says the end is not by and by yet? It's not yet time. I personally believe he's talking about the next verse. Nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. Now, you've seen this scripture. Kingdom versus kingdom is nation joined together by treaty with other nations will war against one another, like in World War I and World War II. And I think that's why he said the end is not by and by. My grandmother was born in 1900. She was alive during both World War I and World War II. Her husband, my grandfather, was in the military. Her sons went and fought in the Pacific in World War II. And they thought, she told me as a child, they thought that that was the end of the world. And Jesus was saying the end is not by and by. And that was back in the early 40s, late 30s, early 40s when we entered the war, of course. And then it's talking. And then it fast forwards a few decades, and it's talking about the times we're living in right now. And great earthquakes shall be in divers places, and famines and pestilence. Divers places mean earthquakes in various places. You're seeing that today in the news just about every day. Famines in Yemen, children are starving because of the war in Yemen. Pestilence, the coronavirus, which you're seeing, that's taken possession of all the news and everything. Fearful sights and great signs shall be there from heaven. Never before in recorded history have you seen so many sights in the sun, moon, and stars, and they're fearful sights, especially to the unbelievers. Never before since Jesus' day have you seen such sights. Now, I know when you look at pictures on the internet, some of them are messed with electronically, but I can assure you not all of them are. Okay, and then it talks about how the righteous are persecuted, and the persecution will turn out to be for their good. They can use it as a testimony, and God will give you the wisdom of what to say when you proclaim His name. And how when you follow Jesus, a lot of times you're betrayed by everybody. Jesus was betrayed by most of everybody. There was only Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother, and John left with him. Everybody else deserted him. And you shall be hated of all men for my name's sake. Don't fear it if you're hated. What does the Bible say? A friend of the world is an enemy of God. The world rejects what's God. And there shall not a hair of your head perish, but in your patience possess your souls. And when you see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation therein is nigh. You're seeing the armies already starting to form. The beginning part of the armies forming. Russia going into the east. The countries going into the east. The United States went heavily in the east. Russia's in the east now, countering the U.S. control of the east. And I preached on Jerusalem's Gate how I believe that you start to see a changing of the guard in Russia going after that crown jewel, the bait on the hook. God says in Ezekiel 38, what have you come to You've come to take a spoil, and that spoil is oil. That's the spoil that people are going there to get. You control the oil in the east, you control the world economy. And for these be the days of vengeance, that all things that are written may be fulfilled. And there'll be distress on the land and wrath upon the people. Right here, verse 25, and there shall be signs in the sun, moon, and stars upon the earth, distress of nations like Venezuela. What's happening in Venezuela with all the natural resources they got? They should be rich, and now they're poor, and they're fighting for food and everything. That is perplexity. It's perplexing people. It's confusing people. The sea and the waves roaring, talking about the tsunamis we've had in the last couple of decades. Men's heart failing them with fearful, which is coming upon the earth. And it talks about at the end of all this, the Son of Man will be coming in a cloud and power, great glory. Now, I want to fast forward a little and go up a couple of verses, and it tells us what generation will see this. And it says, behold the fig tree. Now, the fig tree is a representation of the nation Israel. And all the trees, when they now shoot forth, you see that, know that yourselves that summer is nigh. A tree blooms in the summer, and it sprouts leaves. Israel was rebirthed and started sprouting off leaves and growing as a fig tree in May 14th, 1948. And it says in verse 32, and this generation shall not pass away till all be fulfilled. What he's saying is that the generation that was alive May 14th, 1948. In other words, if you was born on that, no later than that date, all that generation will not pass before all is fulfilled, is what Luke 21 is saying. That generation was my mother and father's generation. They're passing away. My mom and dad passed away a while back ago. They're with the Lord, but that generation is starting to pass away. There's still a large portion of them left, but they're starting to pass away. And it says, heaven and earth shall not pass away before my word shall not pass away. And it talks about being concerned with the cares of the world. And in 36 it says, watch ye therefore and pray always that ye may be counted worthy to escape all the things that shall come to pass and stand before the Son of Man. Ladies and gentlemen, the time clock started May 14th, 1948. That generation that was born no later than that date will not all pass away before everything is fulfilled. That generation is getting older now. That if you were born May 14th, no later than May 14th, 1948, they're starting to get older and they're starting to pass away now. So, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm trying to say, and I know I went through this very quickly, we got to prepare. Join with me in the pursuit of holiness. I am not perfect. I can assure you. If you don't believe me, ask my wife. I am far from perfect. But we must cleave to each other, the believers, and help one another and lift one another up and pursue holiness. And I ask you to join with me on this pursuit of holiness. That's how you prepare. And I just wanted to give this quick verse. I know I went through it fast, and I do apologize, but I just got a few moments. The time is at hand. And ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for sticking this out. If you stuck through it, I know that it's not. A lot of people like watching the news and tend to turn away when it's a sermon time. But take heed, the hour is upon us. Let's join together and pursue holiness. I ask you and I love you in the name of Jesus Christ. Thanks for sticking it out. We'll see you on the next broadcast.